Hello there, FinnishWarchief here, coming to you with a new Magic the Gathering video. In this video, how to play Magic the Gathering. The aim of the video is to explain the basic rules of the game, as well as some of the nuances of the game, such as the different formats and what to keep in mind with Magic the Gathering. My ultimate goal is to help you understand the game well enough to be able to potentially even play a match and not be totally lost. Hopefully, you understand the game a little bit better after watching this. First of all, let's get started with some of the basics. Magic the Gathering is a trading card game in which you are a planeswalker, a wizard with strong magical powers capable of traveling between planes and summoning powerful monsters to bring down your enemies. Or you twiddle your bone flute, if you know what I mean. The gameplay is simple, at least on a surface level. You play cards or cast spells by tapping lands for mana. Every turn you can play one land, and if you have enough of them on the field, tap them to cast your spells. There are 5 colors in Magic: white, blue, black, red, and green. And each of these colors have a different ideology and slightly varying mechanics. For example, white is known for being holy and righteous, overwhelming your opponent with a large army of small creatures. Blue is known as the calculating, strategic side of mages, the ones who decide how the game goes. Black is the dark mages, to whom life is merely a resource, and your resources are there to be used to gain power through any means necessary. Also necromancy. Red is volatile and fast, like fire burning your opponents down and bringing chaos to the game table. And green is the druidic nature-loving color, with big creatures that crush your foes beneath their feet. These colors have, over time, intermingled with each other quite a bit, to the point that they can no longer be categorized as simply as that, because green does do armies of small creatures nowadays, green does some reanimating from the graveyard, and white does have its fair share of big creatures that can stomp your enemies. Despite the colors slowly losing their identity over time, I think keeping those identities in mind still when trying to determine what kind of deck you want to play is important still regardless. These colors can also be mixed together. Each color combined with another color can enhance what your color is already trying to do. For example, black is notorious for sacrificing their own creatures in order to gain something or to hurt your opponents. Well, toss some white in there, and suddenly you can do that even more efficiently. Or, if you add blue to green, you can suddenly love nature even harder. But I think that is enough about the colors of Magic. Let's move on to the actual gameplay. The anatomy of a Magic the Gathering card is key to know to understand how to read a card. At the top you have the name of the card, and at the top right you can see the mana cost of a spell. Below the artwork is the card type and possible subtypes that the card might have, and below that is the text box, which has the abilities of the card listed. If the card is a creature, the bottom right will show its power and toughness. Power being the damage that the creature can deal, and toughness being the health of the creature. You can win a match through various means, but typically this is done by getting your opponent's life points to 0. This can be achieved by dealing damage to your opponent either in the form of combat damage or through spells. A player typically has 20 life points to start off with. A player also loses if they draw a card from their deck, or library as it is called, but their deck is out of cards already. Some spells also, unless countered, say that the caster wins the game if certain conditions are met. Now let's dive into some of the terminology that I have already mentioned. Your deck is known as the library, and every card in your library, aside from land cards, are spells. Lands are divided into 2 main groups: basic lands and non-basic lands. Spells have multiple categories as well. We have permanents, which are spells that remain on the field, such as creatures, enchantments, and artifacts. Non-permanent spells would be your sorceries and instants. Sorceries can only be played during your own turn, but instants can also be played during your opponent's turns. The turns are structured as follows. First, you have the beginning steps, which is untap, upkeep, and draw. During the untap step, you untap all of your tapped lands and other permanents that might be tapped. Upkeep is a step during which certain things might happen. If you have any triggers that might happen during this step, those happen. Otherwise, you can pretty much ignore this step. Draw step is self-explanatory. You draw your card. After the beginning steps is the first main step. This is where you can play a land and cast your spells. Remember, only you can play most spells during your own main step. Others are only limited to instants. After you cast a creature, it is summoning sick until the next turn, so it cannot attack or tap for its abilities during the first turn it comes out. Once you have cast your spells, you move on to the combat step. This is when you can attack your opponent. Combat is also divided into smaller steps, much like the beginning step. First, you have the declare attackers step, during which you guessed it, declare which creatures you attack with. Any attacking creatures get tapped to signify that they have attacked this turn. Then is the declare blockers step, during which your opponent chooses which creatures to block with. A tapped creature, however, cannot block. And then there is the damage step, where you count the damage the opponent and the creatures took. If creatures were dealt lethal damage, you put those creatures into the graveyard. If a creature did not die to combat damage, keep a mental note of how much toughness they have left, because the damage remains on them until end of turn. After combat, you enter the second main step. Much like the first one, you can cast spells during this step. If you didn't already do so during your first main step, you can play a land here. As I mentioned, keeping a mental track of the damage to creatures is important because you can potentially kill off some creatures with spells after they were loosened up by combat damage. After the second main step is done, you move on to the end step, during which, again, if you have cards in play that activate during the end step, those effects happen. Much like upkeep during the beginning steps, you don't actually do anything during this step unless a card in play tells you to. Once the end step effects have been resolved, there is the cleanup step. Here is where creatures heal the damage they got dealt and where the active player makes sure to discard cards from their hand if they have too many. For you can only have 7 cards in your hand outside of your own turn, unless you have something in play that says otherwise. During your turn, certain cards have abilities that can be activated either by paying a cost, tapping the card, or both. Tapping means you turn the card sideways to signify that it has been used up for the turn. These abilities are known as activated abilities. A triggered ability, on the other hand, can happen anytime, even during your opponent's turn, as long as something happens to trigger it. Examples of triggered abilities would be things like whenever a player draws their second card each turn or whenever a creature dies. You may have noticed me say quite a few times during this video already, unless you have something in play that says otherwise, or if you have a card in play that does this. Well, the reason to that is you always follow the basic rules of Magic unless a card in play says otherwise. You can only have a maximum of 7 cards in hand unless a card says otherwise. You can only play 1 land in a turn unless a card says otherwise. You can only play instants during other players' turns unless a card says otherwise, and so on and so forth. It's best to keep the basic rules in mind, but ultimately, the game board says what goes. Now let's move on to some of the keywords that you might find in Magic. Magic the Gathering has a lot of them, but I will only be going through some of the more common ones that you might run into. Knowing these by heart is not required to play the game, but it definitely helps, and if you play the game long enough, these will become committed to memory. Death Touch means that any amount of damage that the creature deals to another creature is enough to kill the creature that the damage was dealt to. Sort of like a poisoned attack. Even if the targeted creature has 5 toughness, 2 damage from a Death Touch source is enough to kill it. Defender means that the creature cannot attack, only block. First strike and double strike kind of go hand in hand. First strike means that the creature deals combat damage first before the other creatures do. So if a 3/3 attacks with first strike and the opponent blocks with a 4/3 creature without first strike, then the first strike creature gets to deal the damage first, killing the 4/3 before it even had a chance to deal damage to the attacker. Double strike creatures deal both the first strike damage and regular damage, so they essentially deal damage twice. A 2/2 with double strike deals a total of 4 damage. Flash means that the spell can be cast anytime you would be able to cast an instant. So if a creature has flash, you can cast it during your opponent's turns. Flying creatures can only be blocked by other creatures with flying, but flying creatures can block non-flying creatures. Haste means that the creature can attack or use its tap abilities during the first turn it is summoned, ignoring summoning sickness. Hexproof is a protection from your opponent's spells and abilities that target. For example, your opponent cannot lightning bolt your Glade Cover Scout. However, any spells that do not specifically target can still affect your creatures with hexproof. Indestructible means that the permanent cannot be destroyed. Whether a spell says destroy target creature or if damage would destroy it, the permanent is essentially unaffected. The exception to this is if a spell or ability puts the creature's toughness to 0 through non-damaging means, like giving it -5/-5 until end of turn. Lifelink means that any damage dealt by the creature is gained by you as healing to your life points. Menace means that the creature needs to be blocked by at least 2 creatures when it attacks. A creature with reach can also block flying creatures, but they do not gain the advantage of being unblockable by crowned units like flying creatures do. Trample is a keyword that makes it so that the attacking creature deals excess damage to the life total of the opponent even if the creature is blocked. A 5/5 that gets blocked by a 2/2 doesn't deal any damage to the opponent, but if that 5/5 has trample, then the excess 3 damage does carry on over to the opponent still. Vigilance means that the creature does not tap when it attacks, so it can still block on your opponent's turn or use its tap abilities if it has any. There are plenty of other keywords too, but these are some of the more common ones you will see, so if you remember these, you should be golden. Next, let's talk about the various different ways that you can play Magic. There are many different formats that you can try and enjoy. Most are 2-player formats, but some can be played multiplayer as well. Standard is, as the name says, the standard gameplay format of Magic the Gathering. You create a deck with a minimum of 60 cards, and the pool of cards can only be certain recent sets. You can check what the current standard legal sets are online. Modern is not as strict with what cards are allowed, the rule of thumb being that as long as the card is printed in the modern style of a Magic the Gathering card, it is legal to play. Sets from the 8th edition forward are allowed. These formats allow up to 4 duplicates of any single card aside from basic lands, which you can have as many in your deck as you want. Commander is a multiplayer format and currently the most popular format of Magic. It can technically be played with just 2 people or up to as many people as you want, but the typical match of Commander will be 4 players. Commander is different to the other formats in the sense that you can only have 1 copy of any card in your deck excluding basic lands. Also, unlike the other formats that have the size of the deck only limited to being a minimum of 60 cards, Commander decks are exactly 100 cards. One of those 100 cards you declare as your commander, and your deck can only include cards that share the colors of your commander. So if your commander is green and blue, your deck can only have green and blue cards. Commander is the format that I play the most, but I have dabbled in some of the other formats as well. Commander is a more casual format in the sense that you will find games that last longer, and the point isn't always to win, but to have fun. Unless you play competitive Commander, in which case, who hurt you? Why do you do this to yourself? Do you need help? Should I call someone? There are plenty of ways to play Magic the Gathering. Obviously, the main way is with physical cards and by gathering up your friends. Buy some packs, build a deck, and have at it. Or buy a pre-constructed deck. These are products that Wizards of the Coast releases that are fully playable decks ready to play. Or you can see if you find a deck on eBay or something. People do that as well. They are an excellent and often cheap way to get into the game, but if you are brand new to the game and not sure if you want to spend the money on cards, then fret not. There are plenty of ways to give it a go without actually spending a single penny. You can check if your local game store holds Magic the Gathering events, and if they do, they might have decks for new players to loan out. Or perhaps a player there has brought spare decks and is willing to loan you a deck. If you cannot find a loaner deck though, there are digital alternatives like Magic Arena or Magic the Gathering Online, with which you can play online with other players. Magic Arena can be played completely free and has great tutorials to get you started with the basic rules. If you do, however, want to take the step into playing physical cards but none of your friends are interested in playing, all you need is a microphone and a webcam and you can play online. Websites like Spelltable and Convoke are excellent for this purpose. And there you have it. Hopefully this video has taught you all you need to know in order to get started with Magic the Gathering. If there are any questions, anything you need clarity on, feel free to put them down in the comments. Make sure to also leave a like and subscribe, it would help me dearly. In the next video, I will explain how I build a Commander deck, what my process looks like, and what steps I take when building my decks. So until next time, Chief out.